Hi, you are live for the launch party of How a Hashtag Changed the World. You're live with Lila and
Nicole Johnston.
And
Caroline Goldsmith.
Hello, Nicole and Caroline. It's so great to see you both. Thank you for kicking this off.
Thanks for having us, Lila. And thanks for organizing.
So exciting.
This. Great.
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting to, launch a party about a book about parties. It's like so meta. And we are, just to give some context to people who are just joining us and they're like, oh, Lila went live. What is this about? So How a Hashtag Changed the World is a book that's co-authored by Nicole Johnston and Anna McAfee. Is it McAfee?
It is.
It is, yeah. I always am like, is it McAfee or McAfee? So now we know it's McAfee, and she can confirm that later. But when we have Anna on later, she's going to be talking about kind of some of the drama, like how it wasn't all super easy, behind the scenes. And here in this section, which is going to be for the next 6 minutes or so, we're going to talk about what it was like to be there from the beginning, Nicole, and also see the stories evolve, get so emotionally invested in the meaning of the LinkedIn local movement and what it really meant for all the people who became part of it and showed up to these events. And then how you took the experience of being so attached to those stories, gathered them into one big bucket and put them into a book. Caroline, obviously, you were necessary for this. So if you want to just get us started, Nicole, tell us how this kind of started for you in like a minute or two.
So it started for me meeting Alex, and I'm a raving introvert. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I am really a raving introvert. And for some reason, I was on LinkedIn and I messaged Alex and we met for coffee, which lasted 4 hours. And at some point in 2017, she said to me, will you write a few things for LinkedIn Local? And she'd already told me about it. And I said, yes, I'll write a few things. If she says to you, Lila, write a few things, or Caroline, run, because that was thousands and thousands of things ago. I don't think at that stage it was a lovely idea, but it was just a few events. And while that more were trickling in, it just all of a sudden, I think it was about, Anna would have to answer this. She knows the history so much better, but it seemed like in the beginning of 2018, all of a sudden people were just coming in droves wanting to set up these events.
Yeah.
And it tickled the political science person in me. I sat back and thought, what's happening? I need to understand what's happening. And I think what was happening is we were tapping into an appetite that I don't think Anna had any idea was global.
Right. Well, she knew it was her appetite, right? That she wanted to have some in-person connection, like be able to do this and then reach out and there's a person there.
Absolutely. And, I'm the first to say, technology, I think, has revolutionized our lives, but we miss that connection, right? It makes things, it makes global businesses possible. We can all operate globally, but actually it was really clear that people wanted to get together. They wanted to talk. And, when she did it, I think what astounded me is she had 15 people turn up to that coffee, which by anybody's assessment for a first event is great. It was like, have you ever heard that concept of a flywheel? The Jim Collins flywheel, where it just kept building momentum, and all of a sudden there were hundreds of people coming forward and hundreds of events.
Right. And cities all over the world. I saw that infographic that Brian Wallace shared today. 100,000 plus LinkedIn members have been involved in some way in at least one LinkedIn Local event. Yeah. So that is a tremendous amount of people having experiences that are unlike any other networking event that's ever happened before. So obviously a tremendous amount of stories. So Caroline, how did you end up becoming part of this book project and deciding which of these incredible stories told the story of how this hashtag LinkedIn Local changed the world?
Well, I met Nicole at a networking event in London for publishing. I've worked in publishing for 20 years, and we got to know each other and really connected and really gelled. And she told me about LinkedIn Local, which I'm ashamed to say completely passed me by. So I knew nothing about it until Anna and Nicole told me what had been happening, which was actually a massive plus in the project, because I could come at it with a completely naked eye, which I think a lot of people will do to the book. So as I said, I've worked in publishing for 20 years. So I know kind of what makes a good book. And Nicole had this absolute wealth of stories, from a global movement. And you can't put all of that into one book.
Why not? Why doesn't it work? Why, when we have so many incredible stories, how do too many stories or too many words diminish the value of a story?
Yeah,
why is it necessary?
Publishing is very much about curation. It's about keeping things concise, and I think that the stories that we've told, every person within the global movement will find something that resonates with them within the book. Books can't be endless, basically. Stories can, because they go on and on and on, but books can't be. But I think that
I'm writing that down in a comment here. I love that so much. Books can't be endless. Stories can.
Yeah. I think that everybody will find something within the book that resonates with their own personal story, and their own personal experience of LinkedIn Local. But at the same time, it was interesting to work with Anna, because her experience of LinkedIn Local, so she tells the story of how the movement started and how it developed and how it became what it was. But when you're sort of working with somebody who is so up close and personal with something, and it's kind of her baby, right? In a sense, you almost have to kind of tweak the story out of them, because they tell the story in a way that's quite disjointed. And I think we've got a really good story about how Anna just kind of stumbled into this and created something amazing with the co-founders. And I think that we've taken some stories, as I said, that I think will resonate with everybody who was involved with the movement. I'd like to see later on maybe some sort of digital archive or some sort of message board or something where people can record everything. But when it comes down to a book, and again, I'll go back to the fact that this completely bypassed me. I had no idea this was happening. So for me, coming into it, I was like, all of this stuff was happening globally. I had no idea. But I think the book will inspire people like myself who weren't there for this moment.
Yes. That's why to make a book, right? Because the rest of us were there. Like the rest of us were at these events. And I think that it's such a perfect balance. Nicole having been there from the beginning, and not just having been there, but being there as an introvert who would never do something like this, except for this was exactly how it had to be inclusive of all different kinds of people. So with that feeling that the humans matter and making people feel welcome mattered, that Caroline, your intention to bring everybody's perspective in so that it could reach all of the people who weren't even at the events, I think is a perfect reinforcement of that mission.
Yeah, it needed to be a kind of monument to what happened, but also an inspiration to those that it did bypass. And I hope that everyone who reads it will see something in there that kind of reflects their own experience of the events that they were at. Or the experiences they had from it.
Covered the stories. There were too many words. It covered the stories. A friend of mine read it and just went, "I'm lost in all these words." And I'll be honest, if we hadn't trusted Caroline so much, we really trusted her, because Anna and I found it painful. We wanted everyone in the book.
Right. Well, of course.
The whole world in the book. And
you got to make Caroline the bad guy, didn't you? Right? Like everybody sent in stories and you're like, sorry, it's her.
And she invested in it and she brought it out as best it can be. And you know, I think we couldn't have done it without her.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for coming on. We're going to bring on two really incredible individuals who had a story that no one could have anticipated at the beginning of Anna putting up a post saying, hey, Coffs Harbor people want to get coffee. So I'm going to bring Randy and Debra on, and I'm going to bring you both backstage. You're welcome to hang out there for another minute or just come and watch live on LinkedIn or at the Say Things Better page on YouTube. Thank you both so much. Amazing to just hear this story from the storytellers. And Caroline, thank you. You did great. Your first live thing on LinkedIn. Okay, I'm going to bring in Randy Cooper and Deb Mathias. Hi.
Hi.
Oh my goodness. Look at the two of you. This is my second time getting to see you both in, I guess in a week, right? Because I was at your LinkedIn local event.
Right.
Debra, which was virtual, right? But you made it feel, first of all, very high value for the attendees. Everybody got tons out of being there. But beyond the value, beyond the things that we learned, the way that you kicked it off and made everyone, you called people out by name, you welcomed people from wherever they were, including myself. And I was like, oh, she said my name. And I was like very starstruck. Because I've looked up to you for so long now as a power user of LinkedIn. So let me ask you, before we get to Randy, what made you say, yeah, okay, I'll do the LinkedIn local events in the Raleigh Triangle area?
Well, actually, I was doing Connect to Clients face-to-face networking. My idea, the same as Anna's, I wanted to meet people from the internet that I had met here in the Triangle. And so I started Connect Clients face-to-face networking. And when LinkedIn Local was born, I reached out to Anna and said, look, I'm already doing this. May I be the host of LinkedIn Local Raleigh Triangle, because I've got a great following here. These people love to network, and they're all using LinkedIn and meeting face-to-face. So yeah, it's kind of how it.
And that felt different to you, right? I mean, you've already been doing these face-to-face networking things. Why the people on LinkedIn? Like, why do something additional?
Well, it always felt like to me, and like today, we're in a virtual world. I wanted to bring that person that was face-to-face that I was training on LinkedIn and how to use LinkedIn face-to-face and meet them. Let's go grab a cup of coffee. And my idea always has been to take as many people just like LinkedIn and put them in a room and let's see what can happen. Great things.
Right. Well, yeah. And Randy, you kind of sniffed this out about Debra, right? Like you had her number, you knew who she was and what that room would feel like if it was something that she was running. So why don't you tell everyone what you went and did?
I was on a LinkedIn mission. And if you think Debra does a great job organizing it virtually, you ought to see it in person because the food was fantastic. And it was worth a 2-hour flight from Atlanta. Yeah, I got turned on to LinkedIn Locals at the LinkedIn Meetup ATL, sponsored by Meeting Matchmakers and Suzanne Spanner.
Oh, yeah, I know Suzanne very well. Yeah.
Fantastic. It was fantastic. And, you know, I went in there and worked the room and just got to meet so many people. And Ronell Richards spoke, Jeff Sheehan spoke, Joy McAdams was there. It was a rock star.
I know Joy
lineup.
too, yeah.
And I came off of that and I said, where's the next one? When's the next one? And they said, oh, we'll do it in about, 6 months or so. No, that wasn't good enough. Let me find one close now.
Yeah.
Now.
Oh, so, anybody ever tell you that you're a little impulsive?
I am. My wife will agree with you. I'm totally impulsive, and everything I do 110%. Otherwise, I just don't do it.
Right.
And so I found I was searching LinkedIn local hashtags, and I found a post from Debra that said that they were having a LinkedIn local January 15th in Raleigh. And I said, Raleigh's not far. I said, I wonder if I could fly in the morning and fly back in the afternoon. Well, I couldn't get a flight out till later that evening, but my brother lives in Greensboro and he came over for lunch after the event. And we had a wonderful time at Sullivan's Steakhouse in Raleigh. Chris Rogers.
Sullivan's Steakhouse. I met Chris. There. Yeah, I met him at the virtual LinkedIn
guy. Right? You got to get the cheesesteak, the Philly cheesesteak, egg roll appetizers.
Excuse me?
Out of this world.
I mean,
arm, right? The knockout drink.
It's a knockout. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And after Debra's event, I actually booked Tampa in March and then Baltimore in April.
Well, so you were a LinkedIn local groupie.
Yeah, I was. It's kind of like the Grateful Dead for me. You know, I followed around the country. But the problem is that, you know, COVID came up and there goes all the LinkedIn locals. And then Debra adapted to virtuals and boom, there we go.
Yeah. You know what? I remember being at many different LinkedIn locals myself from all over the world. Every single one of them feels the same and every single one of them feels different. And if you weren't there, I don't know how else to describe that. So you'll just have to read the book and see how all of these stories told a story, this one story of human connectivity.
Right.
And just that is always the same at every one of these events. Debra, you're a master at facilitating human connection, so much so that you were a magnet for a man from Atlanta to get on a plane and kickstart his groupie traveling all over the world.
I was wondering if he was crazy. I'm like, you're going to fly from Atlanta to Raleigh to come to LinkedIn Local? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like,
but you know what? Having spoken to you myself and having gone one-on-one, we went deep. Like we talked about parenting and my vision for the future and very personal things. We talked about business. We talked about being women. You know, like we talked about all kinds of things in just one-on-one call. If there were no pandemic right now, I would fly just to say hi to you without any event, you know, with great joy. So I don't blame you at all. We're going to move on to the next segment here, but I want to thank you both so much for sharing your story and for contributing so much to this incredible movement that has given a home for connection to people all over the place. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Randy. And Erik Eklund, co-founder of the LinkedIn Local Movement, is coming to join me now. I'm going to say hi. Erik Eklund is one of my all-time favorite people in the whole wide world. The whole world. Yeah, it is so great to see you. Look at your smile. I mean, you just glow. And you were part of this from the very, very beginning. You're one of the original 4 horsemen of this apocalypse, right? Of connection, or the 4 co-founders. So how did you get looped in so early, and why was it important to you?
It was a human connection. It was within me already from the beginning, and I was already doing something with it, but then Anna's post was like that spark, you know, like you're just looking around and it's being like inspiration. Inspiration is often by listening and paying attention, right? And by seeing that post, it's like, oh, now I literally feel like, oh, this is where we need to go right now. So then we started to talk and talk to Anna, talk to Alexandra and all this stuff. And it's just like, I did not plan any of this. It happened.
Right. It happened, but you had to be like, the fact that a post from Coffs Harbor even reached you, and where were you at the time? Sweden, Barcelona?
I was
you could really have been everywhere.
I was in Brussels, Belgium, and I must say, you know, this is actually the power of connection as well, because I was not connected to Anna at that time, but somebody was who I was following at the time, and I just happened to see that person, I think, commented on her post. And that's how I often find new ideas, facts, all this stuff. Like Brian's infographic that popped up on my feed today is like you know, we are hundreds of, we are thousands of people that we are connected with, right? Online. But if we don't interact with them, it's not going to be anything closer, not even on a social media platform. So that's just an example of, because someone interacts with that person that came up to my feed, and voila.
Right. There we go. That's the power of using your voice and then putting it out there. You don't know who's gonna attach to it, how it's gonna find somebody, but it is magic when you do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But you are a purveyor of magic. I've been to other events that you've created, you know, your events, the Connecting Humans events, and I'm just gonna pin this here. This is a link to the human shirt that I'm wearing that Dr. Mike Morgan, one of the original co-hosts of LinkedIn Local DC and LinkedIn Video Pioneer, designed this shirt. I love that I get to wear it with the master of human connection himself, Erik Eklund. So Erik, I have, since I have you here, I really want to get some of your unique expertise and share it with the audience about what was it about these events that you were so regimented about certain things that created safe spaces for real human connection, and because of that connection, facilitating individual and collective growth. So what was it that you did to make that safe space happen?
In its own, it was very, very simple. I applied one rule, and that was you cannot introduce yourself for your job title or your business with a business card. So you have to do something else than that. And that was literally how I still remember how one participant came up, and I often asked, like, so why did you come here? And she goes, you know what? Because I was so curious to see how would it be like to be in a networking event, right? In a networking event in 2017, 2018, when networking was really business cards, all this stuff. So how is it to be here without having to do that? That's why she came. And
just
then
out of curiosity.
Out of pure
really
curiosity, it was like something that was different. It
is really something different. At all of these networking events, it's like, how can I refer you business? How can you refer me business? And at the end of this event, you're like, you have this stack of cards, but do you have it? Like, do you care? Right? Like,
not until I know who you are, what's tickling nerves and all this stuff, right?
Yes.
Not until I know what makes me connect with you or feel you a little bit. Like, I gotta know you. Like, everything starts with some type of connection and relationship. And once we have that, I mean, bam, then we can.
You see it right here in the chat, or I'm pinning them over here.
Yeah,
you can see it live right now. So let me just call it an example of what just happened. We talked about you talked about the infographic that Brian Wallace shared that he created for the LinkedIn Local movement. And here, Brian Schulman, who knows of Brian Wallace, I don't even know if they've met in person. Guys, if you've met in person, tell me in the comments. But look at what he's doing. The two of you have now, the two of you have now reinforced a message of what Brian Wallace does. I've met Brian a few times in person. I know his work. I've now reinforced it, not because he's the only person who ever has made infographics. No. Maybe he makes the best, right? And that is true. But because we know who he is, like this guy, Brian Wallace, we know who he is. You said something, Brian said something, and then other Brian pops up, infographic, you say, you know, that is a live referral. Yeah. He has now gotten free advertising from people who care about him, who value what he brings as a human to an environment. So we got to see this live. I love that this just kind of happened, you know, but I'm not surprised, because anytime you're in a room, Erik Eklund, people just start loving all over each other.
I love how you say it. It's like Erik Eklund.
I know, you have a full name.
Gotcha, Lila.
It's a whole thing. I love this question from Karen. How do you know the actual human? So how do you get to know a real human being? What are some ways that you made sure people would feel safe to open up and share themselves when ordinarily they're at a networking event giving out business cards? What did you do to make sure that happened?
Limit the number of people to about 20 people.
Oh, really?
Put it in a setting where it was like, you know, this kind of inviting, warm feeling where people stood up, where people could mingle, when there was not like one centralized point or anything. It was people had to mingle. And then I actually used a little bit, I invited some friends of mine that really liked what I was doing and said, okay, can you act as undercover kind of agents and stir the conversations? As soon as you hear someone going this normal route, you go in and go like, so you add something else. And often I like to go with the feeling questions. As soon as you start about anything that refers to feelings, suddenly we can go like, boom. We start talking if you're stuck in traffic, if you had a fantastic dinner, if you met some person that made you feel wowed, you love to share that. You love to talk about that. But, you know, the facts and figures of your last monthly report, or your facts and figures for whatever, without the story behind. I loved how you talked about that earlier. The story will make everybody talk and will people make feel again. But the number its own and how many years someone has been doing something without the story won't connect. But the story will.
The story of the humans. I love that tip. It's super actionable. Like, start by asking some insightful human-based feelings questions. So rather than like, what were the events of your day? How did you feel about those? Or pick an event that connects to a feeling. I think that's incredibly actionable, beautiful.
The first time we met, I think I asked you, how did you feel after the event? And you came home and you made that video and you were like, wow, and you made that whole,
you remember it.
Yeah, I totally remember that video. So you were just like late at night coming home and just sharing from your heart.
I have that video. I almost put it up today, and then I realized that something about the format of the video couldn't be subtitled. And I was like, all right, I'm not dealing with technology right now. Let me just like go and do this event. I'll figure it out later. But I might reshare that. It was this moment where my heart was coming out of my chest, and in my hands, I was holding the heartbeat of this event.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't be the only one to hold this. The heart's going to fall, and it's going to shatter and burst into a billion pieces, and it's going to explode. And then what? I'm going to break everything. So I had to go on and,
And in essence, it's like you're talking about this thing with the heart, right? Like you are awake at least 10 hours a day, right? So you have at least 10 hours of opportunity. Yeah, exactly. You have at least 10 hours of opportunities to share, to talk about something. And you do. Every single human being on this planet, we talk about things. But if we don't talk about whatever it is about you or whatever you do or whatever it is, it's because that's not so interesting.
Right. Well, it's
we
true.
talk about other things. So if you tweak your own conversations, if you tweak your interactions with people, if you enjoy the moment, if you go in with that heart out that you say, so that the other person just feels seen and heard. I'm just going to repeat that. Where the other person can feel seen and heard, oh my God, you both will have that connection. Right. You go home and you go, I need to tell you something, honey. I was at this networking event and bam, I met this woman. She's like gorgeous and she is so funny. There you go.
Was it me?
Of course it was you.
I mean, you know. Well, speaking of women who are gorgeous and funny, I'm going to bring on your fellow co-host, Alexandra Galviz, otherwise known as Authentic Alex. But thank you so much, Erik, for being here, contributing so much of your own heart to the movement that changed the world through a hashtag, and just for being here to share your heart and actionable advice on human connection with the audience. Love you. Okay, Alex, you're coming on.
Hi.
This is my favorite because we just had we were like one-on-one in a FaceTime or Zoom or something last week.
I know.
And now I get more time with you. This is really like the secret purpose of doing any of this, is just so that I get to have FaceTime with my favorite, most inspirational people from LinkedIn.
Oh, that's awesome. I have to admit, I'm probably a little bit less perky than Erik because it's 11. I think he's on a similar time zone, but I'm absolutely.
I don't think Erik exists in time zones.
No, he will always
be Erik in every time zone. He's just awake. He just is awake always. It's so funny. It's like, oh, I think you were awake for at least 10 hours of the day, right? And I'm like, you're awake for at least 23 hours of the day, aren't you?
Yeah.
It just like skips around different time zones. But I was so excited to bring you on, not only because we are friends and my life has been changed because of a movement that you co-founded, but because you bring so much interesting, different stuff to the conversation. Your whole thing is authenticity and personal brand and really just opening up about your story. And so here's a book that is a collection of human stories, people who have shown up to live their story, to be authentic in a moment, and then sharing them through their voice in this book. So talk to us about like what it means to even be authentic in the story that we're living. How do you show up and make sure that the moments that are in your story are authentic?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting timing. I was delivering a leadership development program earlier today, and I was thinking about this, exactly what you mentioned. And I really thought about the importance of authenticity. And one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite thought leaders, Brené Brown, is, "Who we are is how we lead." And, you know, if I think back and relate it back to the LinkedIn local movement, you know, when Anna and I first initially talked, we were two introverts, you know, relating to each other. And we were not shy about, you know, hiding that we were introverts. We were very vocal about it. And I think that that played a huge role in the movement around bringing introverts into this movement that might not necessarily go to networking events. I know that, you know, for me, for a very long time, in a long period of my career, corporate career and entrepreneurial career, that, you know, going to networking events was a really difficult thing as an introvert. So I think that, you know, for both Anna and I speak mainly for myself, is that being able to come as myself became a really important thing for me. I felt that when I went to networking events, it was very hard to show up as myself. I always felt like when I was sort of in these events or these business events or entrepreneurial events, there was definitely a pressure to be a certain way.
What was that way? Like, what's the certain way? What do you mean?
I think that, you know, we're almost like forced to sell or forced to, you know, appear in a certain way. Or put
like polished or
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like the way we dress, the way we speak, how we present ourselves, the way we introduce ourselves. And for me, you know, and for Anna and I especially speak for myself, these events were really a way to go into these conversations with no real agenda, no real, this is how I'm going to present myself. I know, and I speak definitely for myself, I never really planned the way I was going to introduce myself. It sort of just happened naturally. And that was really what we were trying to create, that it wasn't, you didn't kind of put anything on or showed up in a certain way. It was really who you were. And that to me is what authenticity is. It's not trying to, and especially in the corporate world, we have this tendency of showing up, you know, how we think that we need to show up for the environment that we're in, but actually it's about showing up just as you are, because that's enough. And that's what we were trying to create, you know, and I think that's what resonated with a lot of people, whether that was an introvert or an extrovert, is that we could pull up
that way, right?
Yeah, we wanted people to come as they are, and, you know, we would accept them as they are. And that's why authenticity was one of our core values.
And how did you express that to people that were the new hosts or guests? How did you make sure that introverts, extroverts, whoever, how did you make sure that they knew you're expected to come and be exactly who you are at this event? How do you communicate something like that?
Well, I think that the fact that it was part of our values really meant that naturally people, especially like a host, would know that that was a really important thing for us. And that was a really important value for other people to embody on our behalf. In terms of people that were attending, I think that it's an atmosphere. And, you know, that's really difficult because it's not very tangible. or like there's not a certain way to do that. But I think that if you were a host that showed up authentically, and I think people can very easily and very quickly spot if someone's being inauthentic, but if you showed up in an authentic way as a host, you kind of set the tone for the rest of the community to show up in the same way. And I think that's why it was so important for us as co-founders to be very vocal of the kind of people that we were, but also to share that with our host around, this is what we expect of our host, and this is what we expect of our members too.
I totally feel that. Yeah, no, I felt that as one of the original hosts in New York City, feeling like this is very clear to me that it is my job to make people feel like turning up as themselves. And so I would ask ridiculous questions, you know, to kind of like bring people out. It might have been quite confronting for some introverts, maybe, like, you know, and eventually we found other ways to do that, including like in the event messaging itself. We would say, come as you are, wear whatever you were wearing to work, or wear your pajamas, like whatever, you know, you do. So we would include that very empowering language in our event invites. We really wanted to honor that core value that you started this with.
Yeah, I think personally as well, something that I did that I, you know, got sort of embodied in certain of the LinkedIn locals was that I used this pack of coaching cards that I designed and had printed. And I really picked questions that you wouldn't tend to ask someone that you would meet at a networking event. You know, things like, there were some really tricky questions around things like, when was the last time that you cried? Or if you had to rank money, power, status, whatever else, you know, what would be the, you know, how would you rank that? And I think that those kind of questions aren't questions that we tend to ask ourselves, but it gives people such a huge insight as to what kind of a person you are. And you can't hide behind those questions, right? And so I think that, you know, for many people that came to the London events, the central London events that I was running, they use, you know, they were familiar with these pack of cards that I would hand out to people at the start of the event, and they'd look at the card and be like, oh my God, like, am I going to have to—
Where are these cards? Wait, can I order these?
Well, this has been, so I am—
Well, funny you should ask.
Yes. Well, you know, it's funny because a few of the hosts got wind of these pack of cards, and it has been a long-standing thing as a co-founder that we've talked about, how do we make these sellable to our hosts? Because we were always getting asked, like, where can I get my hands on these pack of cards? At the LinkedIn, or should I say at the Local X launch in London, we used this. So whenever someone came in and registered for an event, we'd give them the card, and they could always take that out of their pocket and use it. And it was just such an easy way of getting people to open up, really, more than anything, and share a bit more of who they were beyond the profile, which was all what we were trying to do.
Hold on. I have never have I ever cards.
I've heard about them recently.
Oh, you've not played? You never played like the drinking game?
Yes, I have.
Never have I ever had a threesome, you know, and then you raise your hand, or you drink if you have.
I'm feeling considerably nervous about what you're about to do.
I know. Well, here, this is—
I have to admit,
the blue ones seem like
a few glasses
for work. So I'll just ask you, or we'll do this together, you know, so you can just raise your hand if this is true for you. Or isn't, I guess. Okay, so never have I ever been scalded by a Hot Pocket.
Oh my God, I'm so British. What's a Hot Pocket?
Oh God, never mind. I'm gonna skip a different question. I don't know what this one is. Never have I ever done a stuntman shot. Have you ever done a stuntman shot?
No,
I don't know what that is. I feel like that's
like some men in a movie or something.
Okay, never have I ever known someone in the mafia. We can both answer that. So I have. So I'm going to raise my hand that I have, and I guess I'll take a drink. Have you?
I haven't.
Well, so now we know something new about each other that's not on our LinkedIn profiles. Never have I ever done something illegal with a family member. I'm like, I probably have.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not
like
sure about that.
speeding or something. Okay. Never have I ever broken something in a store and walked away.
I'm pretty sure I have. I can't remember why.
I'm pretty sure I haven't. Like, I would be the one like cleaning it up with whatever is in my bag, which is why I have so many things in my bag. Never have I ever owned my own bowling ball.
No.
No, me neither. I won't ask that one. Never have I ever crashed a wedding. I'm sure I have. I'm just sure I have.
No. I'm starting to realize my life is very boring.
Brian Schulman says, never have I ever been more effective than coming together with LinkedIn fam at LinkedIn locals around the world. I agree. Yeah. So these are the kinds of questions that we're talking about. I'm going to bring on some Midwesterners now to just talk about what it is to gather in person around some common values. But thank you so much for coming and being open, being game, and allowing me, to have this trust in this moment. We'll do like a very fast like comment blitz. There are so many people here that I'm putting up on the screen for a second. Lila, the wedding crasher. Good.
Awesome.
Let that be my new brand.
I love everyone that's tuning in. That's awesome.
Me too. Well, this is the thing, right? You created this movement of people who valued authenticity. And so what do you get? Authentic people who support each other in being exactly who we are.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely. And that's the most important thing,
there's no judgment. Say again?
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. I feel I can be myself and have no judgment, no matter what my answer is to any of these never have I ever questions. Right? It's just, I'm welcome to be myself, and you're always welcome to be yourself with me. I just couldn't be more appreciative of you and your time and your heart and sharing. So thank you for being here.
No, thanks for having me. And it's been awesome. And best of luck with the rest of the life.
Thank you. Okay, bringing on a few Midwesterners. This is Chantel Soumis. Hi! And here's Jamie Cohen.
Hello.
Hi, Jamie. And this is Q, Quentin,
What
Michael
up?
Allums.
Can you hear me all right?
And Jacob Wierzbicki. We have Midwesterners in the house for a party. Woo. These are some of the most fun people that I know, all part of the LinkedIn local movement, whether they were co-hosts or just attendees. But you are all hosts of at least one event, right?
Yes.
And Chantel, I think you've hosted events in more than one city. I can't hear you, but I'm assuming you're saying yes, Lila, and you look fantastic. Thank you. So nice.
Thanks.
And Jacob, you've also, oh, there she is. She's off mute. Chantel, tell me about your experience as a LinkedIn local host in the Midwest.
Oh, yeah. So we launched it originally in Chicago. I think that was the OG place for the Midwest. And then we brought it to Madison after some interest, and then over to Milwaukee. And it was crazy because every community was so different. Every event was so different from the rest. None of them were the same. Right. What were you seeing as the differences from one community to the next? Ooh, I mean, this is hard. I could be so brutally honest, but yeah, do it. So Chicago's friends here. Sure. Okay. So Madison's super laid back, a very chill place. Chicago's very buttoned up, I feel like. It was super cool because all the people were still really authentic across the board. And then Milwaukee was a much younger crowd too. So it was interesting to see the differences. And it may have been like the people we were pulling in to help host and coordinate. I have no idea. But either way, the common denominator was, as you and Alex were saying, and I hate this word because I feel like it's lost its buzz, its luster, but that's authenticity. Well, is that a Midwestern value? Like, would you say that authenticity, and Wierzbicki, I'm going to ask you, do you think that authenticity is a Midwestern value?
I don't know. You know, I'm a transplant Midwesterner. So I've only been up here now for about 2.5 years. I don't know. I can say that hard work is definitely a Midwestern value.
Okay. Do you think that was one of the things that you saw, like in your events, that people all valued?
Yeah, I think so. I think for the most part, I think that people in the Midwest are very, 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 very hard workers, just in general. I've seen that, you know, across Iowa, and I've attended pretty much all the events with everyone else. And you definitely do see the differences. There's definitely differences. You know, I've attended some events in Austin and Dallas, and I mean, with you, Lila, and Q. So you definitely see the difference, you know, in kind of, I would say, subcultures within the people. But I think as a whole, I would agree that I think people are pretty open and honest. And I would say that those events were very, I think it was just people just trying to hang out.
Did I lose his volume, or is it me? Well, if it's me, it might be my AirPods. Take them out.
Sounds good on my end, man, just like I remember.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, you can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Because
Hey!
What up?
What's up, Mark?
Look at that beautiful face.
Oh, look at these faces.
Oh.
How's everybody?
Not as good as you, apparently, man. You're looking crisp.
Yeah, like
Dude.
this looking fancy.
Doesn't this face belong in HD? Come on.
Oh yeah.
Always.
How's everybody? Good to see you guys.
You too, man. You too.
It's
Been a
been
while.
far too long.
I know. I'm having a major.
I don't even live in the Midwest anymore.
I know. I miss everybody so much.
I'm actually in Iowa right now, Jacob. In Sioux City.
What?
Really?
Yeah, where I grew up.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Cedar Rapids here, and it's an absolute mess from the storm.
Oh no.
It's good to see your faces.
We can't hear you, Lila.
Lila, you're trying so hard, but we can't hear you at all.
And nobody even knows themselves.
What is going on?
Careful with those
I
hand
know.
gestures.
Okay. Oh no.
Thank you. That's what I got.
And
Okay.
you're back.
Check your
No.
settings.
No.
Check your
Still
settings.
nothing.
Hit the settings wheel. It's probably just your mic. I was 2 minutes late to this because I was playing video games and I totally missed a notification. Glad I
I
made it though.
appreciate
Well,
your
glad you made it.
prioritizing.
I'm trying to be authentic, you know, it's a Midwestern value.
I was out walking dogs with my dad down by a creek in Sioux City, and I realized, oh no, I have just minutes to get back. So we sped home, and here I am.
Here we are.
Your life sounds so magical, Jamie.
Mine, the magic of walking by a creek. I'll tell you.
Well, we all assumed there was unicorns down there by the creek.
There were the unicorns in Sioux City. That's what draws people here.
Well, we don't have creeks here in Chicago.
Ooh. You know what they call Sioux City? Little Chicago. So maybe
Really?
just trickle their way. Yeah, even though it's so many miles away, Al Capone was like, you know what, Sioux City, we'll take you.
Yeah,
Call you Little Chicago.
he liked Dubuque too for that same
Oh, look,
reason.
Steve Sullivan.
Steve, are you the honorary moderator?
I guess I am. I guess she traded me in and out. So welcome, group. I love you guys, especially because you're Midwesterners like me. And I've certainly tried to attend as many LinkedIn locals as I can. Madison, I love Madison. Chicago. Q, I was going to come over to Milwaukee when COVID hit and shut everything down.
Yeah, man, it happens. It happens.
So how many of you guys are doing like virtual LinkedIn locals?
I want to, but I moved to Denver 2 years ago, which is crazy. It's been 2 years, but last year I was traveling the entire year. So the only people that I know are my friends from college. So I don't really have a big, I mean, I could bring people from around LinkedIn and whatnot, but I don't know enough people to make it like a Denver thing. But I know, Chantel, you've done some virtual LinkedIn locals, right?
I've tried, but nothing has come to fruition, unfortunately. It's on the goals, but you know, when you're homeschooling and running a business and all the other stuff, things have been crazy lately. So fingers crossed, because I know virtual will be awesome, because then we can combine Midwestern-ish. I mean, Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison, Dubuque, what?
Yeah.
All of these, right? We can do this. Magic.
Cedar Rapids.
Cedar Rapids.
We can drive, Jacob, we can drive halfway and we can like high five in the middle.
Yes.
I think Cedar Rapids is like 3 hours. Is Cedar Rapids by Ames? I can't remember anything.
No, so Cedar Rapids, Ames is north of Des Moines. So I'm about 2.5 hours from Des Moines. So I'm probably 4 hours from Sioux City.
Why can't I remember where Cedar Rapids is?
And I'm about, which I mean, my office is still in Dubuque. So when I'm in Dubuque, I'm only like an hour and a half from Chantel.
I thought you were moving to Texas, man. What happened?
I don't. COVID. I'm blaming everything on COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
everything that's 2020, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I think my plans for 2020, about my birthday, March 18th, I was like, screw whatever plans I had, and we're just gonna roll with whatever happens this year. And so we're in September, and we're just rolling.
Yeah.
There's no plan. It's gone.
Definitely. Mark, what city are you in?
Outside Chicago. So Chicago.
He's the only one in Chi-Town still.
Yeah.
They've all moved away.
I know.
Hey, I'm still here. I'm still out in the suburbs, so.
Hi.
Yay, Lila's back.
Got her back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
You
thank
can.
goodness.
Are you going to bench me or let me stay with my friends?
This is why I have to always have a Steve Sullivan, you know. One of the Midwestern values has got to be like having your friends close, right? Like keeping people close to you. And because look at how all of you are from different places, but you know each other. You relate on some level that is very local. Like, you know that these are your people. How many of you see people here in this group that you haven't actually talked to in a while, but you feel super connected to?
Of course.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
So there's been this request from Nicole Johnston. Jacob Wierzbicki, can you tell us about your first event?
I feel like she's got to be talking about Austin, Texas. And I think that was the first event that I spoke at for LinkedIn, for a LinkedIn local. I think that was the first one. And Q may remember better than I do. I don't know, because he and I, we were kind of, he was trying to help me out a ton back then. I say back then, I feel like 2020 has just made everything, let's put 10 years on everything.
Yeah.
It's like back then, 2 years ago. I think she's referring to the story about Austin, Texas. And Austin, I think, was the first time that I spoke somewhere that when I remember telling Q this story, maybe Chantel, we did a little thing. I was very nervous. I practiced it a ton in my office, walking back and forth, talking to myself like a psychopath. And when I get down to Austin, and after I get through speaking at that event, I mean, people just lined up at the front to ask me my questions. And I guess for me, I never gave myself that much value in my own life. And so when I left from there, I mean, people who've followed me for any amount of time, they know that I had a pretty rough life growing up. And so I think that was the first time when I could physically see that I had made a difference. And I think for most of us, right, I think we do a lot of what we do is we hope to make a difference, right? Like, I think everybody here are like, I think we're all decent humans. And I think that every day when we get up, the idea is, let's be a light and let's help people. And so I think we hope to make an impact, but it's hard to measure impact, right? And so I think for me, that was the first time when, I had people come up to me and said, hey, you made me look at things in a different way. And for me, that was everything, right? I'm not trying to make $1 million. I'm not really trying to do anything other than maybe offer a new perspective. And so for me, it was being able to look, coming from somebody who for so long was told that they were worthless, able to turn around and tell somebody else that they're worth everything and then believe that, for me was absolutely, you can't put a price tag on that. And the feeling that you have from that is very surreal. It's a very deep, visceral feeling that you get of complete and ultimate fulfillment. And I think that was a really, really special moment in my life, and definitely something that I will forever cherish, because you knew you made a difference. And I think that means a lot. I think it means a lot to you.
I love your story. I love your personal story, like where you've come from and what your mission is in terms of bringing that kind of affirmation to people all over the world, not just as a speaker, but as a person who sits down at a table with someone and makes them feel 100% welcome as they are. So just sending some big Jacob Wierzbicki love to you. I think you're extraordinary. I always have. And I don't know that you and I would have become as close as we are without the LinkedIn Local movement to move all of us. You know, I'm not a Midwesterner. Jamie, you're now in Denver, but you know, you're in Chicago for so long. What's the difference for you between the city where you were and the city where you are now? Do you feel that there are different kinds of people?
I do think the people are very different. Chicago was great, and I think Chicago is even better when it's a place where you grow up and you have a really solid group of friends or you have a traditional job. I was always, I was in comedy, I was a dancer, I was always doing these different sort of off the beaten path things, so it was a little bit harder to make friends, and it wasn't something that I had ever experienced in any other part of my life. And so it was really wonderful having LinkedIn Local and meeting the sort of people that I wanted to know and wanted to be friends with, and actually being accepted in those communities. Alternatively, in Denver and in Colorado in general, it's really easy to meet people. And I think it's because there are so many people coming from different places. In college, I went to school in Boulder. I made some of my best friends walking down the street or at a coffee shop, and I still meet people all the time just doing random things. And I think that there's less of an idea of no new friends than there is in Chicago, where it's like very much more established, and people are friendly, or they're nice, but I think the friendliness, it takes a little bit longer sometimes, just from an outsider perspective.
So did it feel insidery at your events? And Mark Steele, I'd love to hear from you too, also from Chicago, and Q from Milwaukee. Do you think it felt insidery, and what did you do to make people feel at home when they were maybe outsiders coming in to your events?
I love that question, because I think LinkedIn Local definitely changed my life. I know that it did for a lot of people, and especially for me when I helped Chantel and Mark and Q and Jacob were also part of that too, do the inaugural LinkedIn Local for Chicago. And I remember I was still recovering from severe social anxiety, which is so strange being a performer, but that's a story for another time. And I remember getting in front of we had 120, 130 people and thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? And then getting up there and just instantly feeling at home and feeling loved and supported and being easily able to meet people. And I think through all of the events, just the event in general was sort of like the networking event, and giving people this opportunity to connect with one another and just show up authentically and say, I'm too nervous to do this. I don't know what to ask you. I don't know what to say to you. And having other people say, you know what, don't say anything. Just hang out. Just put your feelers out and see what happens. And then being able to just make these really great connections. And I think also having a lot of different conversations, with a lot of the panels, it really opened it up to allow people to feel safe asking questions they might not otherwise.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, a lot of LinkedIn Local events had speakers, had panels. Next up, I'm going to talk to Jillian, Bullock, and Jane. I always want to say Jane Seymour, but it's Jane Jackson, who's even more beautiful than Jane Seymour, in my opinion. And at their events in Sydney, there weren't speakers. That all of the people who attended the events are speakers. I wanted to hear about that. But I do love the idea that having panelists encourages people to ask questions. Q, do you remember any particular questions that were surprising to you or moved you or where you felt like you could add particular value? Any questions that stand out to you?
Yeah, it's a long, long time ago. And like Wierzbicki said, it feels like 10 years ago. But I would say for us, we did ours a little bit different. You ask about like the insidery, like the high school drama-ish, like that is a definition of Milwaukee, in my opinion. So we wanted to do something a little bit differently. So we had people fly out from like LA, speakers from LA, like speakers from New York, I believe, and then some Milwaukee people. But we wanted everybody to feel like they were somebody. And we had people come up after and say like, yo, like I got the chance to talk to Shay Robot. I'm like, thank you so much. Or like, this guy sold a company with Gary Vaynerchuk, got to ask him these questions. It was less of questions that people asked during the panel and more of questions that they were able to ask after, and conversations they were able to have after.
Yeah, I loved those people coming up to me after, like when I would speak at events, and they would ask things that had nothing to do with like the topic that was like the add value topic. And so sometimes I was like, well, then should we have just talked? You know, Mark Steele, you're a speaker, you're a host of the event in Chicago. We're going to go in 2 seconds and just transfer over to the Sydney ladies. But I just would love to hear from you because you're a master interviewer. You know, what kind of questions do you ask to make people feel at home at these events?
I think I've learned through networking events, or LinkedIn Local was kind of a first for me of that kind. And it's just really comes down to taking a genuine interest in learning about the other person. I think too often we go to a networking event or something to that effect, and we have an agenda that we want to make sure that we tell them about what we do or who we are and how we can add value to their life. But I think the exact opposite is actually the winning formula. And that's certainly the approach that we took with the first LinkedIn Local here in Chicago. And talking beforehand, we wanted to make sure that the event was just a fantastic opportunity to get to know each other. We interact with each other online, on LinkedIn, we comment on each other's posts, but now we get a chance to actually have a conversation. And I think that the energy that we had as hosts just kind of permeated through all the folks that showed up. It was all about getting to know the other people, like really finding out who they are. And that's what makes these types of events so special.
I think it's interesting to be in this group of people. You know, I'm just noticing you're all those people who have genuine curiosity in who the people around you are. Like you're all people who, if anybody watching this goes to the comments, the activity of any of the profiles of these people, or if you ever are in a restaurant or at a table with any of them, the questions that they ask come from a genuine place of curiosity and interest and value for growth and learning. And this acknowledgement that the person that you're talking to has value that you know for sure you don't have, because they've lived a whole life that's different from yours. And all of you share this genuine curiosity. And so now I'm wondering if that is, whether you guys know it or not, if that's a Midwestern value. There's not a lot of that in New York, I can tell you that. And there wasn't a lot of that in LA. And I think it's that genuine curiosity in the people around you, the value of getting to know people for exactly who they are, that made your events some of those that stood out as being transformative for people who came in and felt accepted and seen. So thank you all for being such a beautiful part of the movement, giving people a place to feel at home with other people who have that hustle, have that work hard mentality, but at the bottom of all of it, really care about getting to know each other. I'm going to take you all out. Thank you so much. You're going one at a time. Look at this group of folks, huh? Okay. If you can still hear me, raise your hand. I'm going to enter Jane Jackson and Jillian Bullock. I'm so sorry that it's been This little technical thing has put us behind a couple of minutes. I know that both of you have big days, but Jack and Jill. Wow.
Jacko's right there.
Hi.
It's so good to be here, Lila. Good morning, Jill. Don't call me Jill.
Oh, I guess it is for you guys, yeah. So I was just talking about you a little bit on the Midwestern party panel, or Midwesternish party panel, and how you don't have speakers at your events in Sydney.
Well, actually, we will in the next one, won't we, Jillian?
Well, yeah, but it wasn't very often when we did live, because we've got online one next week. So we do now and then have a special guest. The 1-2 months ago, Jane had redone a book, new version, second version of her book. So we sort of launched that book at that event. But yeah, most of the time we didn't go with speakers because what we found was, you know, you talk about the ethos and all that sort of thing, and then they completely ignore it and just start spruiking and selling and come buy my stuff and here's a discount code, and we're just sitting there with our minds blowing up going, what are you doing? And so we just went, forget it. No, we just can't trust people, so stop it.
And then what we did was we thought, why don't we make our participants the stars of the show? And then we'd have, you know, different activities and games, and we'd get them to share their stories and, you know, ask them, you know, what's the most fascinating thing that's happened to them on LinkedIn, and then they get prizes. Very often they'd win a copy of my book, Jillian.
Oh, really?
Then they get copies of my book, and then and then we give them LinkedIn tips.
Prizes, so.
Were the prizes enough to incentivize those more introverted people to share some of their stories? Or how did you manage that? How did you manage getting people to share stuff in front of a group who maybe had not done that before?
Yeah, we usually have an activity and then we get them to share the results of that activity, and they can nominate someone. You know, we break them up into groups because we usually have about 40 to 50 people attend our events. We cap it so that everyone can really get to know each other quite well and not have them too big, because it's all about getting to know the real people behind the profiles. And we haven't really had a problem having people come up to speak, have we?
No, not really. It's more being, you know, we just asked for 3 speakers because we only had like 3 prizes or something.
Okay, you open it up and then you just make it like, if you want to, there's not pressure.
Yeah, if you want to, but I think by that stage they'd already been networking for about 45 minutes, so they were quite relaxed. And we sometimes had networking games as well. Like I remember the one, hopefully you remember this, Jane, which when we gave everybody the wrong name tags. And so they had to go and find the person that had their name tag, but of course somebody's looking for them as well. It was only confusing for one person because I didn't realize I'd printed 2 name tags of the same person.
That's so funny. I love that idea. It's like really messing with people, you know.
Yeah. Well, we love having games. We had another one where we had balloons, and we'd write everybody's name on the balloon, and then they'd have to blow up the balloon themselves and then find, you know, whoever's name they had as well. So having different sort of innovative games and things to break the ice. And we're all so serious during the day when we're working. Let's have a bit of fun in the evening.
Yeah. Your events looked so fun. Do you remember either of you one in particular that was like your favorite one? Or if you could go back into a time machine and end up back there?
I like the balloon one actually, because we got everyone to throw the balloons in the air and we took some fantastic photos. Which was your favorite, Jillian?
That's a hard one, isn't it? My favorite's the one I've had ready for like a year, but since COVID hit. So I actually have one ready to go that I've written, which was getting into small groups of 4 and then moving every sort of almost like speed dating, but so not. And I want them to answer questions on the big screen about LinkedIn, because I can't remember the name of the app. I think it's Kachu or something. My kids were using it. And doing like multiple, what is it called? Multi-answer questions, multiple choice, sorry, God. So too early in the morning. And then it actually scores on the big board and all that sort of thing. And I can't wait to do it. And I've got all the questions ready. And then COVID hit, so we've gone online, which everybody's got to be on the same Wi-Fi and the same Bluetooth to make it work. So I spent a lot of time on that one. But it's really hard to say what would be a favorite.
You know, we had one, Jillian. Remember when I had those conversation cards and we broke everybody up?
Alexandra?
No,
it was called The Art of Conversation. And with that, everyone got, you know, a card, and they'd break up into groups. And some of the questions would be a bit risque, and some would be just funny, and some would be serious. So the groups could choose what they felt comfortable with to ask. And at the end, everyone was saying, "Oh, we want to buy a box of these cards because they were so good." It was just called The Art of Conversation.
I love that.
There was a lot of laughter.
You know, because it tells me that they found such value in that experience that they wanted to have it again and again and again. They wanted to own the potential to have those moments anywhere they went. So what are some of the questions that you think people can ask each other to get to know each other better, whether that's at a LinkedIn local event or just in the DMs? You know, you're both very well known for being a career coach and a LinkedIn coach. So what are some of the things that people can ask each other to get to know each other better? What are some good questions to ask?
I remember we had one which was, you know, tell us the most interesting thing about you or the thing you love the most that's not on your LinkedIn profile. I remember that one, and all sorts of hobbies came out of that one.
So that's a good one. Let's ask that question then right now just to model it. So, Jane, what is your favorite part of yourself that's not on your LinkedIn profile?
My favorite part of myself? I don't think I can tell you, Lila. You mean what I like to do? It's too early in the morning to be naughty, isn't it?
It's never too early in the morning to be naughty.
I think one of my favorite things was, I mean, about 100 years ago when I was much younger, I used to be a dancer choreographer. And I think one of my favorite things was when I choreographed a pole dance, and I do have it on video somewhere. And I had my little troupe of dancers, and it was so much fun with the boys and the girls, and everyone was dressed up, you know, as Spanish dancers, and we were rolling around this pole, and it was, good fun.
I love that. So Jillian, same question to you.
Same question to me.
No pressure to have a pole dancing story, you know, anything.
No, that would be really tragic.
Can't beat that.
No, probably back BC, before children, I was involved in flyball. So I don't know if you know it. It started in the US, but it's basically a relay race, a hurdles relay race for dogs. And my previous dog was part of the 2007 national champion team in Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yep. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh my God. Maybe you just weren't listening, darling, because it wasn't about cats.
I know.
Brian children with these hashtags is killing me here.
Oh my, never too naughty, early to be naughty. Come on.
No, it's true. But like, look, these are the conversations that we have when we attend events over years and host these events where authenticity and being 100% yourself, the actual person, not the bullet points on your profile, but like these are the stories that come out when you're in a safe space where you can trust people to just love these things about you.
Well, a little story that sort of is kind of a bit ironic is that when we were actually, Sydney was the 23rd location to do the LinkedIn locals. And a few people have said to me, well, how would you know? And it's like, it's not hard to count to 23 when you start.
Right.
I tracked it up till about 90. And I did a little map around the world and sort of named all the hosts and all that sort of thing. And then after that, it was just growing so quickly that I couldn't possibly keep up with it.
Right.
Because that was prior to the website and all that sort of thing. And there was just no way of tracking who the existing hosts were and all that. But Jane and I had known each other online for about 3 years. And, you know, we're both in Sydney. There's only 2 bridges that we have to cross. One of them would be the one behind Jane. But we realised we were getting ready for this event and we hadn't met in person. And it was like, this is just what do you mean I've never come to your house? But actually, well, we've never met. And so, you know,
you
the
were
whole
over the bridge. You were over the bridge. And in Sydney, there's this great divide. It's all the same city, but the bridge makes things seem so far away. So when we did meet, it was lots of fun. And, you know, surprisingly, there we were sitting having a cup of tea, and we thought, we actually like each other. This is quite cool.
Who knew? Who knew that you could find people that you would actually like on LinkedIn? You know, I'm from New York City, so I relate to like the bridge and tunnel thing, the very provincial attitudes of people who live like right here or right here. But if you have to hop over a creek or something, or even a puddle, you feel like you've traversed the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Or some other ocean that's closer to you. I don't know.
So
I think
for us, it's been 3 years. It'll be 3 years in November. We hosted our first event. But I think for me personally, one of the best things that's come out of it is not only is Jane more or less my bestie now, but also that we started our podcast together. And it took us a year to work out that our names actually made Jack and Jill. So out of LinkedIn Local, you know, LinkedIn to Jack and Jill was born as a podcast. And even if LinkedIn Local takes a completely different direction now, or, you know, God forbid, die out or whatever, we'll always have that. So
yeah. And so tell us about your podcast before I transfer us over to our next group of speakers. But like, what are you hoping that people will find in your podcast? Is it a place for connection and storytelling? Is it something else? Is it career advice?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Jane's the career coach side, and I'm not interested and don't know anything about it. It's not my area of expertise at all. And so I concentrate on the lead generation side of LinkedIn. But it's also, we discuss how we can use the same features sometimes for the two different areas of what people want to use LinkedIn for. So we discuss that, and we also, I don't know, we have a lot of fun. I pay out Jane a lot because she's
constantly, because I'm a crazy cat lady. Honestly, I'm a real crazy cat lady, and Jillian loves dogs. Although she has a cat, I feel sorry for her cat. We always had this cats and dogs, and sometimes Jillian says stuff that I disagree with, and I'm always saying stuff that Jillian disagrees with. So it's actually kind of fun. And I'm not a funny person, but somehow
yes, you
when
are.
I'm with Jillian, I become hilarious. So how good is that?
I think you are funny. I think that maybe what happens is, like, when you're with Jillian, well, first of all, she and I share that, well, she and I share that we bring out the naughty in people.
Yeah.
Like, I think because we are so like, whatever, this is who we are, you know, that it does bring out those parts of people that are surprising. But I mean, thank you for making those spaces for people, not just at your events, but also online. You've both been very encouraging of me, you know, when I post a song or something or a performance that is wacko. You two stand out for me as some of the most supportive of my craziest things.
Oh, cool.
And, like, I know that you bring that to your events. I know you bring it to your podcast, and you certainly bring that encouragement of whoever people really are and making it fun to the LinkedIn community.
We thank you so much.
We're going to transfer over to our next speaker because we've had a little bit of a delay, but I'm sorry about that. But thank you so much for joining us and being who you are. I love Jack and Jill.
No worries.
All right, we're going to transfer over to a combined slot now. Let me bring on first Dancing Diana. Hi, Diana.
Hey.
Now, you and I share a history of speaking at LinkedIn Local events. You put your shirt on. We're twinsies. You look great.
You look great.
Speakers at LinkedIn Locals all over the world, and so has been Michaela Alexis, who I'm going to add here. Hi, Michaela.
I'm kind of jealous that I don't have a shirt. I saw that. I'm like, oh no.
I'll link to it again. I'll put the link in again. But so Dr. Mike Morgan, who interviewed you also on Humans of LinkedIn, which was like right around the same time or right before LinkedIn Local. It was about getting to know the humans, you know, behind the profiles. And I remember seeing your episode was one of the first ones. And there was Judi Fox, who's one of our best friends. So Fox rocks, Fox in the house.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm like, howdy, howdy.
here.
My dog wants to join us now.
Wow, what an attractive group of people. If I don't say so myself. But I wanted to talk to these people about what happens when you go and speak at an event, and not just any events, but these. We've all been speakers at multiple events, including, Judi, you've spoken at other events. I don't know if you've spoken at LinkedIn local events other than your own, but I know you.
Oh, no, I did with Diana, if
Perfect.
I pronounced
Yes.
the right way.
Spoken
out in LA.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so we have all experienced this, right? Where you can speak at any event and you bring you to the table. But there's something about these events that they bring themselves to the table. Like they bring their own atmosphere where whatever you want to say, you'll have a safe space. So as fellow speakers, I'm asking you, did you feel that you had the ability to go a little bit wilder or a little bit kookier or a little bit more whatever in these spaces?
Yes. 1000%. Yes.
All right, explain the ears. I'm putting you on solo layout.
Having the last name Fox, obviously it's pretty obvious to have fox ears, but I actually think I got these because when you go to events and you do speak, it's so impressionable. I love like Diana's ears. When you wear something that is a statement, people are going to recognize you and you're going to be memorable. So I know Michaela's always wearing something. I was expecting a little flashier outfit, but I'm just kidding.
Michaela, are you wearing something? You're actually wearing an outfit. Is that your coffee?
But
So
it's
Michaela,
so important to be yourself. I can't not be Judi Fox. So
we wouldn't want you to be anyone else.
Yes.
Exactly. When Michaela came and stayed with you, you had known each other a little bit, right? Like when Michaela came and stayed with you to speak at your LinkedIn local in
Hardly.
Richmond.
No, we met through.
I'm like buying her a plane ticket and I'm like, just come stay in my home for a week.
I did not know her.
That's a huge leap of faith, Michaela.
I don't know. There's just something about Judi. Like she could either be like my best friend or a serial killer. And I was like, well, I think we might be best friends. I don't know.
Judi, I think that people have probably said that same thing about me and about
Well, you told me to go to the LinkedIn local in Dallas, and I was like, well, Lila told me, so I just got a plane ticket and went.
That's my favorite. I love when people do what I say.
Yes, you're very convincing.
Thank you. You know what? Because I'm only recommending things that I think are in people's best interests. Like, have I ever been wrong? And I was like, Diana, come to Dallas.
I did.
Let's go to the library, or oh, we got you a library card. Michaela, we got you a library card in New York City.
And that was also like kind of a LinkedIn local, like a mini event.
Yeah, it was like a pop-up. It was like,
so I literally met both you, Lila, and Judi through LinkedIn local.
Right. And Diana, you've met who's like the most fun person that you've met, Diana? I'm asking you to pick favorites and you can't say me.
No, I have to say it's me.
We haven't met, so it's got to be Judi.
Wait, hold on. Let me do this. I'm going to make like a little pop-up mini LinkedIn local right now. So this is going to be, I'm going to remove myself.
Ooh.
Ooh. What's happening?
We're in. What?
Is this
Lila?
like Hunger Games?
Yeah, probably. We're eliminated. No, this is the Bachelorette. We've got to fight for Lila's love.
I want you to talk amongst yourselves. This is a little pop-up mini LinkedIn local. So I want you to have one, and I want you to show people how speakers at an event are thrown in front of people they don't know and get to know each other before the speaking, after the speaking, whatever. So I'm going to remove myself, and I'm handing the show over to the two of you for a few minutes.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Hey, Diana. We've been talking for, how long? It's been a few years, right?
Yeah, probably 2 years.
It's incredible. and you're on the other side of the. But you've been to LinkedIn locals in the US, right?
Yeah, I've been to 7 in the US and Toronto. So that was massive.
How have we missed each other? I don't understand. So I think that I've so I've done 2 of the Toronto ones, and I think that I literally just probably the one that I didn't do you were at.
Probably. Yeah, it was a big trip. It was 3 weeks, 7 cities. It was a massive trip. But I don't really talk at LinkedIn Locals. I dance. Yeah, so that's why I think Lila just needs to put some music on.
Way more fun.
No, Lila, put some music on.
All I have is the Bewitched theme song. The only music I can't explain this. Hold on, I'm bringing Judy Fox back. You did very well.
Oh, and yeah, we were at LinkedIn Global, which was a huge LinkedIn.
Yes.
So shout out to Brian Schulman. Thanks.
We have had incredible experiences speaking at events all over the world, really all of us. At LinkedIn local events, I have felt, not that I really edit what I do when I show up outside of a corporate environment sometimes, but I have always felt that when I speak at LinkedIn local events, everybody there wants exactly who I am and as much of me as I'm willing to share. So any of you have any stories about generosity and really opening up and being vulnerable and cracking open all of the depth and breadth of who you are and sharing that with a group, what's happened?
I think if I can use LinkedIn Local Melbourne example, instead of people coming up to just talk and network, we decided that we wanted people to have action, step into the uncomfortable. And at the end of every LinkedIn Local, we got everyone to dance, so that they could experience that euphoric feeling of being stupid. But I would be stupid first. That was the power of LinkedIn when I went to the US, was that I had 500 content creators who came to the events who would just dance. And I was in my brain going, why are they dancing? And that what led me to my TED Talk, which was that people were willing to be a fool only if I fell down first. And I provided that space for them to fall down. Even if they were hiding behind me, Judi Fox was dancing prominently in front. So there are people who are willing to dance up front, but there are people, and that's what I really believe in the LinkedIn power, is connection. But we want to take connection to the next level. And I'm just grateful, very grateful.
Well, I love that dancing facilitated that for you and for the people who get to be in your group. So we will dance our way out of this when we transition to the next segment in your honor. Somebody else is going to have to sing, though, because I honestly cannot think of a single song other than the Bewitched theme song right now. It's something has bewitched me. Haha, what about you, Judi? What are your stories, or what's something that you want to share about sharing vulnerably, cracking open the tremendous breadth of who you are and the power of sharing that with an audience?
I definitely think, obviously, when Diana was just saying, people expect exactly who you are, because if you are at these events, you fast forward. It's not just handing out business cards, it's real conversations. And so bringing it back to the very first call that I had with Anna, even though I know that that's not in person with her, but what she created and what got just expanded from this entire thing was real conversations, real amazing heart-to-heart moments. And we cried on our first call together. You're having a connection call and you're crying with Anna. Yeah. And then literally, I just can never top the fact that I opened up my home. I can't even still believe I did that. Sometimes I look back, I'm like, what happened? I'm telling Michaela, stay with me for a week, and having people stay in my home, it's just insane. And I look back, I'm like, wow, that was trust, but it's because you build something with people that you can trust. And that's what gets created with us.
Well, there was a vetting process too, to who we would train as the next LinkedIn local host. I was one of the LinkedIn local global host mentors, and there was an onboarding process. So there is something to the fact that you were so visible on LinkedIn, You know, like we know where you live kind of thing, right? Like if you mess with our Michaela, like we'll all come for you. We know how to find you where you are. That adds that.
But we have dog content.
Yeah, like it makes it more trustworthy. So Michaela, you went to stay at Judi's house, having not known her before. You showed up at this event, you spoke, you opened up that night. Just the two of you in her house. And now I'm not talking about the event, but just about sharing of yourself, because the two of you have ended up with one of the most incredible partnerships that I've seen on LinkedIn. And it came from just this bonding that happened. So inquiring minds want to know what happened at Judi's house. And a reminder that it's never too early to be naughty.
What happens in Richmond stays in Richmond. I'm just kidding. That's not a saying. But you know, for me, and a lot of people don't know that I do have social anxiety. I had agoraphobia for a year and a half, and I always struggled with networking events. In my mind, I was like, I hate networking events. Like I always feel uncomfortable. I'm happy when I leave. And the reason why was because they were the events that I was going to. It was people that just wanted transactions. They wanted something from me. And I could sense that. I'm a very empathetic person. And I was just constantly just feeling like the energy was wrong. The surface level questions were wrong. Everything just felt off. And LinkedIn Local for me was like amazing, because LinkedIn had become this really amazing space that I didn't expect to talk to people about real issues. I mean, I met Judi through Chantel. Chantel I met through a contest that I was hosting on LinkedIn, where I mentored Chantel and convinced her to start doing LinkedIn video. And she did. And obviously she's like now this like amazing like
she's a star.
And and then she introduced me to Judi, and so it's finding those people that are willing to open up their heart. And the thing that attracted me to Chantel is that she was so open with her heart. I could see that she had these amazing intentions, that she had come from so much challenge and had these like such major struggles, and she still had this like gigantic heart and this like heart of service. And that was like what really like made me gravitate towards her. And then when I met Judi, like within, honestly, like she hooked me at like the first audio message. I was like, this girl might be crazy. Like, I think I love her. Like, and
you get her audio messages.
I have never, even having social anxiety, I have never felt more comfortable than I have in Judi's son's bed in shark sheets and being at LinkedIn Local events, because I knew it was going to be a space where I could be like, hey, I have social anxiety. And the person would be like, oh yeah, that's something that you wouldn't get those like, oh, right? Like where it's like, oh, I need to talk to the next person that has the mask on. It was all people that came without their masks. And it's something that I actually really miss now, because I do a lot of like really big events and everything's really going well in my career, but it's like that, it's really that community element that's really been missing for me. That like for anybody that has gone to one of the events, it's regardless of if you speak or not, the type of relationships that come out of it, and it feels like a family reunion, right?
Yeah.
Like you have like
you're literally in someone's family.
Meet each other.
You're like on her family's shark sheets. Shark sheets has to be one of like
Can I just say, I was on Kaylin Barfield's Jax's bed sheet as well when I was in Dallas.
I too have slept on Kellen Barfield's son's sheets. This is the thing, right?
It's just LinkedIn. Like I mentored somebody for another contest, and that's when I met you, Lila. I was in New York. And I was staying at her house. She invited me to come and stay at her house. And it's the same thing where my husband's like, I don't know what you're doing. You're literally you're going to another country and staying at random people's houses. And in no other way would I ever do this. Like for conferences or anything else, it's only been through LinkedIn. It's only been through like the LinkedIn Local community.
Yeah. The same experience. Like we've all popped up and spoken at all kinds of things, but like for the record, when you pay for us to come and speak, you also have to pay for a hotel, right? Like, house. It has to be like it has to feel like family for you to be open to doing that. And I think it does impact what we bring to the stage when we know that we're talking to family. Like we know that we're there with our people.
I did pay for a place for people to stay, and I was gonna pay for Michaela, but I offered my home.
I would rather stay in Judi Fox's home than anywhere else.
100%.
Judi drove up to Washington DC to stay in a motel with me, and Kristen Sherry did the same thing too. We had like a slumber party in the hotel. Kristen Sherry and I slept together, and Judi had her bed to herself with her pillows. Pillows up.
I feel like I'm missing another like really good story, but there are endless good stories that I'm going to bring in Kenyatta Turner for our next segment in just a second. But like really so fabulous, so special to be with you all. We clearly have so much in common, and we're going to dance our way out of this particular segment. It has been suggested and then seconded that we baby shark our way out. So,
oh
wow! I'm 35 years old.
That's too bad. I mean,
oh my gosh, I have a video of Michaela
and Anna McAfee, one of the two co-authors of How a Hashtag Changed the World, has seconded it. So too bad that you're however old you are.
I have a video of Michaela dancing with baby shark at my house.
Yep.
What? I forgot about that. That's in like the lost files.
Oh, this whole thing is the lost files. That's fantastic. All right, Diana, sing it out.
Ooh, nice.
By the microphone. Leave
mode. You've seen these microphones, people. Are you playing the music?
Kellen's ribs. Yes.
1, 2. Baby shark, baby shark, mommy shark, mommy shark, mommy shark, mommy shark.
All right, that's enough. It's like more baby shark than like I ever needed. But thank you for the suggestion, Anthony English. Leave it to you and Anna for making that happen. Thank you all. I love you. Goodbye. Kenyatta, come to me. I'm going to bring in Kenyatta Turner, who's got her own event coming up that I'm going to be speaking at soon. Hi.
Ooh, hey.
Hello, Phoenix.
Is this thing on? Am I in,
yeah,
am I in here? All right.
It's
What's up,
on.
Lila?
It's you. You look great.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
I feel very tall. You know,
yeah, like I might short, tall. What's going on here?
Move my chair down and like
right. So for us to get at the there we go. There we go. All right.
My head is not that high. Okay. Oh, but I want to show. Okay. So hi. We are running a few minutes late, so we're only gonna have a couple of minutes, but it's just you and me, and I know that we can deliver massive value real fast. So one of the things I noticed when I was speaking at LinkedIn Local Phoenix is that it was full of these independent business owners. Like almost everybody who was there. And I don't know that if it's because of, who you brought in or who Lori brought in or who Karen brought in. Is that just a thing in Phoenix? Are there just a lot of independent business owners?
Yeah, most of the people at our events were business owners. Now that I think about it, I didn't think about it until you said that. But yeah, a lot of them are business owners, entrepreneurs. Yeah, I guess that was kind of our demographic, not by intent. You know what? Probably because we do a lot of networking with business owners. So especially Karen, I mean, she owns a networking company. So that's mostly who's coming. And I'm a huge networker, usually with business owners. So I guess that's why it worked out that way.
So when the hosts are people who have their own communities, like you are a draw for a certain kind of person, but there are all kinds of traditional networking events for people who have their own businesses. And these were different. I think that the LinkedIn Local movement provided something beyond the exchange of business cards that was really about the human connection.
Absolutely.
And you and I are both in business for ourselves, really.
Yep.
So, and can relate to this, I'm sure, it is lonely AF sometimes. Really, to feel so isolated, and especially during this time of, you know, quarantine and the pandemic, oh my goodness, it's tough
Mm-hmm.
to be in business for yourself.
Absolutely.
You really on yourself. So what is it that you think, what did you want to make sure that you and Karen Joseph and Lori Corrigan and everybody like brought to these events that would provide that missing connection for these independent business owners?
Really, I think it was the connection with people outside of what is the conventional networking meeting. Like, no one was running around handing out business cards. Most of the time we didn't even have name tags. It was like, come in and say hello and have a hug and eat some food and sit down and then learn, because our speakers typically were bringing value in teaching us. And I think people really came for the connection, the friendships, and then the education. And so I think that's not always happening at conventional networking meetings. So they ultimately wound up being very family dinner style. You know, we were doing them at the La Familia, not when you came, but we wound up switching to this La Familia, this really good Italian restaurant in Mesa. And, you know, we would just have a big, huge U-shaped table. Everyone would come in, sit down, eat lasagna and spaghetti and pizza, whatever.
That's my favorite.
Right. You know, and have a drink and, you know, it became really like a really big family dinner style type of event. And we kept it that way, and it worked very well for us. So we loved it. I think that's why people came.
Family dinner. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Why should you not have family dinner? And why should you not have that atmosphere? Just because you don't have that team that you work with, you know, where people have that benefit of having a full team in a business where you are part of something.
Right.
It can, if you run it well, feel like family.
Yes. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm sorry that we don't have more time, but that really is something that we can picture and take a bite out of, right? Like having this feeling of a family dinner where you break bread together, you come together and you eat, you know, you manja, you said lasagna, which is my thing on Instagram. I'm Lila Lasagna.
I know you're Lila Lasagna.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. And from speaking at those events, from flying in from at the time where I lived in New York City, flying to Phoenix to speak, to be in that hotel, to be with all of you and feel, you know, at the time I don't think I had my own company yet.
I don't think so.
At DNA Footwear, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
it was like this feeling being in your space. I could possibly have a seat at that family dinner table and not miss the feeling of connection and collaboration.
Right.
You really made that happen. And it was a really beautiful example for me of how I could be an entrepreneur and not be isolated. So on a personal level, I want to thank you for modeling that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was the first, meeting you was my first LinkedIn local event before I was a co-host.
What?
Yeah. So I was just showing up because Karen said, come to this thing called LinkedIn Local. And I'm like, what's happening on LinkedIn? Nobody's doing anything on LinkedIn.
Right.
You know, and you were the speaker and you did that whole training on LinkedIn and completely opened my eyes. And things just, kind of went from there. For me, really, it kind of showed me that, all right, this is the jam. This is LinkedIn is magical, you know?
Yeah.
And here I am now, and we're about to open up a LinkedIn pop-up with Russ Johns and Arthur Jones.
Oh, that's so exciting.
To do something that hasn't yet been done yet in LinkedIn Local. So we got an event on September 17th. For those of you who are interested, check it out, and we'll tell you what we're planning, you know?
Are you going to be posting that on your own profile?
Yeah, it is. I just put the event up today, actually.
Awesome. For those of you who
And
want to check that out, find Kenyatta Turner, Kenyatta, last name Turner. And I'll put a link to that somewhere on my profile as well. And you can always tell me. Yeah.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.
I know I'll see you again soon because we have our event.
Yes.
So I'm taking her out. I'm sorry that we're rushing this at the end here. We're in the last few slots. I'm going to bring in Scotty Berty. Hi, Scott.
Hey, I'm here.
Oh my gosh.
How are you, Lila?
Oh, I'm so good. I'm so happy to see you. You and I have had so many text conversations of like, I have a training thing. It's in 5 minutes. Do you have the link? I don't have the link. Can you do this? Who are you training? Can you hop on for me? And taking over and swapping in and out. So you and I know each other, otherwise, but now like especially because we trained other hosts.
Yeah, we got to know each other pretty well during the course of LinkedIn Local, and as Anna started to introduce more of like the systematic onboarding for the global host mentors, which we kind of jived on quite a bit. But yeah, like LinkedIn Local has been such a major part of my story, really, when I think about the last like 3 years of my life. I've been complimented so many times, I think recently, like looking back on the last 3 years at like what a story I have. And I don't really know like what story it would be without LinkedIn Local, because I really wouldn't be here. Like a lot of the things that have happened in my life or would have led me to where I am now wouldn't have happened.
I'm so glad they did. And I know that Swish Goswami is also glad. Hi.
Hello.
How you guys doing? Corners of wherever you are.
Yeah, I know. I really thought my lighting was better, and then I just screwed up. So my bad on that.
We know how good looking you are. You know, we can just guess.
You got to assume look like Ryan Reynolds. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
You know what's funny? He just said the same thing about you. So he's like, if only I had that data, though. Like,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
He would look pretty foolish. So tell me what you guys are up to now, like pretty quickly, and then we'll talk about just in general how understanding the nature of how this movement grew through influencers.
Sure. Scott, do you want to fill everyone in?
Yeah, I mean, like right now, Swish and I have been working together for the last 3 years. I mean, it's getting kind of close to the 3-year mark. This is about how long we've known each other, I think. Like I started connecting with you on LinkedIn or kind of like messaging back and forth about the potential to host one of these, going back a little about 3 years ago. And to this day, it's brought us to basically running a company together, a company that Swish founded called TruFan. And he brought me in, right at the ground floor as part of the founding team. And we worked together to kind of push that thing from idea to product and eventually to raising some money. And now to where we're at with, I think, over 550 customers and close to about $100,000 MRR. So it's been a wild journey. Certainly a lot learned, but it's been fun to be on the path with this guy.
It's so great to see you guys working together and in something so meaningful. One of the things that I know about TruFan is that you're really helping brands and individuals, but like mostly like big brands, understand who the people are who are values aligned with them, who are the ones who are their ride or dies. And those are the people who made LinkedIn Local happen. It is the people who followed me and Rachel, who came to our events. It is the people who followed those people who came to the next one. But we needed that groundswell. And we needed to start with the people who are the most engaged, because those are the ones that would battle for us and forgive us, for things that we're just figuring out. And you guys at TruFan are helping these companies to figure out who their groundswell influencers are. You must be influenced by having seen this happen at LinkedIn Local.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think a big part of TruFan was very much the influencer culture that, my co-founder Anik and I and Scott also, we all saw this firsthand, right? So we saw this across Instagram, we saw it across LinkedIn, that people really like connecting with their communities, and those communities are getting much more localized and small and very interactive. And so we thought, what if we're able to do that for any brand even, right? Like in today's world, every brand wants to appear like an influencer to their audience and communicate with their fan following in that way. So why don't we show brands who their top followers are, or who are people that are influential that are following them that might not have millions of followers, but might have 10 or 20 or 30,000 followers and might be great advocates for your product and service. So 100%. Right?
That word advocate, right?
Exactly. Yeah, very much. I think Scott nailed it. Your tribe. That's pretty much what we're trying to show you. Yeah.
No, like the tribe are the people who show up, right? There's a difference between an influencer who has no influence, but plenty of followers, and an influencer who can get people to show up.
Yep.
Right. So I'm going to bring in Rachel West Palombo. Rachel, I'm bringing you in. Make sure you're dressed. You never know. Hi. And so Rachel, I think you had messaged with Swish like at the very beginning, like about starting these in New York, and then I messaged with him about muffins or something, and then you and I hosting the New York events together, and intentions to do all of Tri-State, but then the movement grew so big that other people wanted to host those events, and we were like, great, you do some of it because it's a lot. It really is.
Yeah. Sandra,
I think it was like the middle of the winter. There was like a snowstorm or something when we were supposed to do Connecticut, and then Sandra ended up taking
Long.
that on, which was a huge relief.
Yeah. But we needed those people who would have their own tribe. Like, we didn't have a tribe in Connecticut. Like, we would have gone, and people from New York maybe would have come and followed us to Connecticut, but she's the one who had her tribe there. So she's the one to get the yes from those people sooner than us. We got the yeses in New York all the time, real fast. We sold things out. People gave us things for free because they knew that we were the influencers who would get people to convert. We were the people who had people show up for us.
I remember seeing, sorry to interrupt you there, Lila, but one of the things that really inspired me about like what was going on, I guess, in person through LinkedIn was when I noticed it was pretty late summer or like early fall, and Swish was hosting what was one of like the real first ones, or he was attempting to, and I'm pretty sure like it was just like a total impromptu, like go up to this block in New York and we'll meet up essentially. Like it'll be a LinkedIn meetup or a LinkedIn local meetup. And like just to see that actually worked when it was raining. I do believe it rained that day.
Washington Square Park, it was raining. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
That came out. And like speaking to like finding your tribes and understanding like, you know, the people that are going to resonate with your message, like that really stood out to me. And, you know, after that, I think it was pretty easy to see there's something special that could go on.
Yeah. Oh, there is something special about each of the hosts too. You know, I think that the movement itself, and Scotty, you and I we've mentored
so many
all over the world.
Yeah.
I don't know, hundreds.
Yeah.
And we know like there has to be something special about someone who will compel people to show up, who will be a draw. And I'm not surprised at all to know that people were lining up in the rain to see Swish.
It's a good look, I'm telling you.
You surprised?
Man, I was definitely surprised. I remember I expected maybe like 3 or 4 people to show up, but I forgot that, like, you know, when you get 3 to 4 people to show up and then they tell their friends, that's, you know, 8 people or 9 people, and then it grows even from there. So it was cool. Like we had about 13, 14 people come out, and it was just a very honest conversation we all had with each other. We were just talking about LinkedIn, networking, talking about being in the rain at Washington Square Park randomly. And I had a feeling like these types of events would probably pop off. Went on the internet and found out that Anna did one in Sydney like a month ago. And so it was just really cool. Like, you know, like Anna was one of easily the most influential people when it came to like then bringing some of these early hosts together and then kind of funneling this energy to be like, go out, create these events, find reliable people that are genuinely passionate about their community and really empower them to start these events. And it's crazy how those events then started popping up every single place in the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but also we could have seen that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, really, we could have. And that's what TruFan helps people to do, is to be able to anticipate the success of a campaign through the really, truly engaged metrics of the influencers who are behind it. So, I mean, I think that what you guys do is amazing, giving brands really the power to start their own movements, to have their own true influence through the people who are going to show up for them.
Yeah, grassroots.
What you do is great. So I wanted to say thank you and shout out like to LinkedIn Local for throwing you guys together.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you really do the same thing, because there was that time that we had a LinkedIn Local planned and you ended up spending the day in the library coloring with,
that's right, with
some
Danny
of the
Millham and
but I couldn't make it through the storm, and you went and you showed up and you ended up forming this connection with the person from coloring in the library. I thought that was awesome.
Thank you. That was really fun. I mean, it's always fun to color. I always have markers like within like arm's reach. I always have like color. Just like that wasn't the setup. Well, I'm gonna just keep Rachel for a minute, and thanks you guys for joining us. Great to see you.
Lila. Nice to see you.
Hashtag change the world. Hi, Rachel. So much.
It's been too long.
I know. You look like you're in this like mystery novel cover shot right now.
It's my day off, so I'm hanging out at the pool and drinking my tea. So
that's fantastic. I just have water here that like I should have planned.
As soon as I got on the video, it said, lighting is really important. And I'm like, shit. Pardon.
No, that's okay. This is my show, right? Like, we talk like
around lighting candles for me.
That's so funny. Well, I mean, I brought you in. I wasn't gonna not, like, you are my LinkedIn local story. You know, our sisterhood, our friendship that even since I've moved to Dallas, like have you as an anchor in my life to talk to about some of the things that are so personal to me that I would just never share them with anybody else. And the open love that we share, having really come together as a pair through LinkedIn, but especially bonding through hosting these events together, has created this trust, you know, that I know I won't be judged ever for being who I am with you. And I think that people could feel that in our connection. And that's my hypothesis as to, like, they saw something between you and me that was this hugely powerful connection. And they were like, if there's an event that fosters that, I want to be a part of it.
Well, I think we have a very unique way of balancing each other. And it's smooth, you know? You're the yin to my yang. But where I don't like to hug and you hug, and where you know you're not comfortable talking and being in this, I'm ready to go, and vice versa. So
you're always the first one there, and I'm always the last one out, right?
So we have like a really compelling way of just sharing the responsibilities and being dually present with everybody. And it worked, and it was special. And it was, I think, also a point during both of our lives and both of our careers where we were both going through a turning point, and everyone saw that we were totally on this like path, just going with the flow, but together. And it was a really, I think, important part in both of our lives, so that we have that connection that even if I don't talk to you for months, I could just text you and randomly it'll feel like I just talked to you yesterday.
100%.
So
we're connected forever, and I think that it is that. That's my hypothesis as to why everybody said yes to us. I mean, look, there are stories my whole life about, like, I asked for something and someone said, okay, you know, but getting people that I didn't even know to show up at events that were sold out, give us free photography and video editing and food and drinks and spaces.
Those little sliders still to this day. Amazing.
Yeah, that was event one at the steakhouse. Oh my gosh, those sliders. That was the night I made my first ever LinkedIn video with slider.
Oh yes, the magical video. I remember that now.
It was a magical night. It felt like
even
so,
that little magic fairy light.
Yeah, it was just magical. It felt like it was meant to be, and the event that night, everything was just waiting for us. And then it was just up to us to rally the people and get the yeses and get people to show up so that we could honor this moment that was waiting and be there. It was so special.
I think I'm not sure. I still talk to at more than half of the people that were at that event. I'm still very connected to them. Like, that's how powerful that event was.
You remember Lynn Zalakar? So Lynn was at our first event, and then she came to, I guess it was the second event, and I saw her there, and I was like, Lynn, hey. And she's like, you remember my name? I'm like, yeah, we spent all night together, bonding over being human. And like, it was preposterous to me that she would think that I wouldn't remember her. We got deep with people.
Well, I think between the two of us, between me with faces and you with names, we're really good at that.
Yeah, we should actually find a way to like put our brains together and like smush them into one, because we are for sure a dynamic duo.
We are.
Well, I'm going to just keep you with me. I know that if you have to go, you can jump out, because I know you have like a family and a life.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, it's all up to you. Oh, Lynn is here. I was just talking about you, Lynn. Ben Bradbury spoke, and she learned from him to find 2 points of commonality when sending a lengthy connection request. I love that advice. It's so actionable. I love that you still remember it. I mean, really, this night that we had, like that first night, and then all of the subsequent events, they were so full of magical connection, actionable advice, people being people, that who wouldn't want to be a part of that, right? I mean, come on. Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna take you out. I love you. I'll talk to you on our own, one-on-one. And I'm gonna bring in to close us out here, Ryan Troll and Anna McGaffey. I'm gonna say hi and good night.
Congratulations, Anna.
Thank you. And sorry, I'm losing my voice, but it's so nice to see you, Rachel. I haven't spoken to you or seen you forever.
I know. I've been so busy, but it's all in a good way, and my busy is all offline. So I've been a little bit of a ghost lately. I'm sorry about that, but I'm so happy to hear about your publication coming up, and can't wait to read the book.
Me
Thanks,
too.
Rachel.
I have it. I have the book in my like right over here, and I also have a link to the book that's in this post. There'll be a link to this book that's in my up, like at the bottom of my up next on my own profile. You can find it on probably on Ryan's somewhere. I think he posted today like a really beautiful video as a congratulations, and certainly you can find it on Anna's. So what do you think, you guys? I mean, do you think people love you and are grateful for LinkedIn Locals for being a thing?
I think so. And can I also just say how much fun this has been? Actually, just watching this for the last 2 hours. I did the first 15 minutes like on the school run, dropping my kids off. And my kids are like, what are you listening to? I'm like, don't even go there. But it's been so fun. So thank you for everyone for watching and taking part. This has actually been a great experience.
If I had to count, Anna, how many times you've taken calls in the car over the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, that's
a lot.
Well, the 3 a.m. ones to LinkedIn were probably the most interesting, sitting in my car at 3 a.m.
So when you're sitting in the car at 3 a.m. and you're on a call with Ryan Troll where were you, in DC when she was on the phone with you?
We would flip a coin to see who would be either early morning or late night.
I love that. No, I'm up for being up in the middle of the night for these people, for our people. Andrew Griffiths, who's one of the co-founders of LinkedIn Local Youth, and he's doing a TEDx talk on, I think it's October 9th. And he posted about it a few days ago, and I saw it today because one of our people commented on it, and I saw that, and I was like, yeah, I'll get up at 3 a.m. to watch Andrew speak. I can go back to sleep, but probably what'll happen is I'll be like Matt Gagnon, and I'll just be like, I'm up, let's go, have an atomic morning, or like one of these, like, hey,
Oh, I love Matt.
Gotta get up and make it happen, like.
Yeah,
that's my impression of him.
I'm getting too old for 3 a.m. stunts.
You're never too old for 3 a.m. stunts when you know it's going to be worth it, right? Or that other person that's going to take your call. I want some of the dish. We're closing out here on a high. Everybody's like, this is so awesome, and the events felt so great. But we know that there was some stuff that went down behind the scenes that was hard, that was heartbreaking, that was the stuff you have to overcome because you believe in it so much. Do you feel that the obstacles or the drama in some way like made you dig into the values of the event that meant so much to you to begin with?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was various aspects that we could talk about in terms of problems. And I mean, we had tech problems, we had people problems, we had human problems, we had team problems, we had all sorts of stuff going on. But I think
particularly when there was disputes and things with hosts, and we'd get a message, you know, I'd wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. and check my phone, and suddenly 2 people have fallen out and they're expecting me to mediate on it. And I was sort of like, you go back to the values. You go back to, well, this is a collaborative movement. Like, you can't just go and set up another one next door and not consult with whoever it is that you're setting up against. You know, this is all about collaboration, not competition. And so, yeah, the values were really, really central to the curation of the experience, and also the curation of the host community, and making that a safe and welcoming space, whilst not letting in some of the stuff that people came, some ideas that people came to the movement with, which was sort of pitching and selling and making money off of it. So having those values was really helpful to deal with problems.
The host got we had at one point in time such a backlog of people that wanted to host, and poor Anna, you were just kind of taking them, you know, one off, you know, wearing all that on your shoulders. And we said, we need to fix this. And you know, we wanted to get everybody into hosting, right? But it was so important to have that conversation, right? So you could hear from either us or someone on the team about what this was all about. But that became so hard. You know, it's easy when it's like maybe a dozen or 2 dozen events, but when it was, gosh, Anna, I don't even remember, hundreds of hosts, like
You can refer back to Brian Wallace's infographic.
knocking on the door. We had to like come up with how we were going to handle that, because we didn't want to turn people away necessarily, but it was so important to have those conversations. And I just remember it was, I mean, gosh, Anna, there was late nights that we were taking host calls.
I remember.
Yeah, I just saw that comment from Erik Eklund too. He was like, do you remember the late night mediation calls with hosts? Yeah. So what's he talking about? Fill the dish. Like, no one gonna.
Look, I think the really hard thing about LinkedIn Local was that there were some people very deeply passionate about it, ourselves included, and that passion. I'll use a line I know is in the book. Often the strengths are our weaknesses, and that passion was really where people they had to be the host in their city. And if they didn't get that spot, and we're like, that's not what this is about. But they're like, no, I'm so aligned to LinkedIn and I love it so much, and love my city so much, I need to bring this to my city. Or I need a whole state or a whole country to, that's my patch. Like there was sort of a flag in the ground and like, this is mine. And that was hard to manage, because we were equally trying to balance, well, one, we couldn't really stop anybody. And two, we also wanted to respect, people's passion and the amount of work that was being put in, and also take some of that on board and reinvent our processes in a way. But going back to what Ryan was saying, with the sheer volume, I don't think I'm a best-selling author yet, Brian.
You might be.
I think we did hit #1 for a few hours on new release sellers. I don't think that's bestseller. To be honest, I have no idea how any of this works. But just going back to what Ryan was saying, we had these Zoom spots on the website, and the website very much validated what we were doing and helped people find us. But we were getting people joining at 2 a.m. and I'd get messages from people. I've tried to book a spot, but they're booked out for 30 days. And we'd be like, oh God, we've got to put another one on. And we have to do all these spots. Then we eventually came up with a very crazy technical process of, Zapier and Brian can explain all of that.
Ryan, you were behind.
We were getting 10 host requests per day. And that was with a pre-screening form to weed out anybody that we knew. And that was literally 10 a day. And we were just like, what have we done? This is just going to all corners, all pockets of the globe. There was nowhere it didn't touch.
Well, there's some leadership lessons in this, right? About growing really fast when there really is a demand for something. you started this because you, Anna, like, were the one with the demand for human connection. You were like, I want it. I'm going to go get it. And so to go from, does anybody want to have coffee with me? To, there's such a demand for coffee that, like, you should have had stock and beans, you know?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, it came back to the values, you know, a central core value that we needed to figure out ways to convey that efficiently, and entrust others to kind of take that and then implement it decentrally, right? And so we had to kind of come up with ways to get more hosts in. And I think, Anna, at one point in time, we had debates about, you know, do we regionalize? Do we have like country leads? Just anything to kind of share the love. And eventually we started getting others to do host calls for us, which was really cool.
I did those. Scott Berty, who was on before, did those. Matt Gagnon did those. And I met some of the most amazing people that way. I met Mary Brandt, for example. She was on one of my mentorship calls. And then she came in and was a host in San Diego. She and I just had a one-on-one call for the first time 2 weeks ago. Like, we've been so connected online, like, since that host mentorship call. But that was like enough for us, you know, to feel really connected around this movement through these values, that it was a no-brainer for us to get on a call just to be like, hey, what's up with you right now, you know?
And I think the calls were really important. And at one point, someone I remember said to me, like, why are you doing these calls? Like, why can't you just have a pre-recorded thing? And why can't you, or why don't you just have people like tick a box and say, yeah, I agree to the values, and then they get through? And we were like, that's absolutely not what this is about. This is about human relationships and having those conversations. And when people know the story, I mean, a lot of people thought LinkedIn Local was something that LinkedIn had come up with. They didn't know it was a user-driven thing. They didn't know it was a user-driven thing. They didn't know that we were just a bunch of crazy LinkedIn users that just did this for fun. They thought that, you know, so it was important that people knew the story. It was important that people knew the values, and it was important that people knew what they were coming into and that family that they were coming into, because it would split up the family if we didn't do that.
You're right. No, family values, right? People say family values, like, you know what the values of your family are.
Yeah.
You know what they stand for, and so you know what to expect. We've got some comments, you know, calling out that you wanted to make sure that those values were what scaled, and that it wasn't just events that put the brand name of this on something it wasn't. I know you saw that come up. I know you had tell of people who ended up having LinkedIn Local events that were very pitchy. So, you know, when I heard about that and asked you, like, what are you going to do about this? And again, you were just somebody who wanted to have coffee with people. And now it's on you. Like,
yeah,
you are like a community grower, like, by nature, your whole life.
There was that, and then the other thing we saw was, like, initially this race to have the biggest events, which was actually kind of like opposite of what we were going for. And I don't know if you remember this, Anna, but there was like kind of events that were getting bigger and bigger, and then I think it was maybe 6 months in, they started kind of coming back around to the, you know, 40 or less. But I still remember there was like this arms race of, you know, who's doing the bigger events. And I mean, there's only so much we could do as you know, co-founders to help. You know, we can't say no, right? But we can only instill the values.
Right.
But one thing I remember was that happening quite a bit early on.
You and I, Ryan, were at an event in DC together. I actually don't even know if it was a LinkedIn Local event, but it might as well have been. Like, it felt like one, right? There was meat. I remember there being meat.
That was the first time we met.
Yeah.
And I don't think Dr. Mike Morgan is on, but we met.
Well, I'm representing.
We met in person for the first time then, after having had many of these, you know, in between screens. So that was those are my favorite moments, is meeting someone for the first time in person after you had been interacting with them online.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time that Anna and Alex and I met up in London. And it was about a year of doing that. It was about a year, right? I think it was the year anniversary. And it was just one of those moments, right, where you meet friends for the first time in person.
And you do, and what I remember from that experience was you find out things about people in person that you just don't find about them even. Like, I mean, Ryan and I had literally, I remember this conversation of Ryan's son was feeding the dog his bottle, and I think my son, and I was literally changing a nappy, and he and I are there talking like tech talk, like do we need to like plug the Zapier thing into whatever? And it's just like, I remember this surreal moment of, because it was about 6 a.m. here and it was about 9 p.m. there, and it was just, thank you, diapers and all my Australianisms. And I just remember this surreal moment of like, what are we doing? Like we'd had every conversation you'd think you could possibly have, and then we met in person, and then I got the stories behind Ryan's tattoos and found out other things that this was just like, I don't think this ever would have come up had we not have sat down in person at some point.
Now I feel
and
like
that was really nice.
That information. So Ryan, tell me the story of one of your
What's that?
Sorry, Ryan, I've lagged.
Tell me the story of one of your tattoos.
Oh, I don't have anything that exciting. I got a Vegas
I'll
tattoo.
just make one up then. So, you know.
I got a Vegas tattoo, you know, kind of last minute thing. I got a couple on my back, but they're not, it's no interesting story.
I'm going to make up the rest of it then. These are the kinds of things that you learn about people that you're just not going to learn on a LinkedIn profile, right? When you're looking up people's experience, what companies they've worked for, what kind of roles they've held before, even through content that they share that's instructive or, you know, tells people what they do, or like, you're not going to learn about what their tattoos mean. You're not going to learn about, you know, what somebody is like as a listener.
Yeah.
In a group of that.
Something that someone said to me really early on with LinkedIn Local, I can't remember who it was, but it was, you can't fake an offline connection. You can build this really polished profile and you can say whatever you want to say about yourself. You can be a best-selling expert champion of whatever. And you can create content and you can try and connect with people that way. And in a way, that connection can sometimes be very fake, in that you're not really getting to know that human. But you actually can't fake an offline connection. You can't stand in front of somebody and fake that connection, because when it's false, you see it a mile away in person, but you don't always detect that falseness online. Somebody can be really successful online that just, you know, just isn't that way offline. And I think that's one of the really special things behind this, was it really did enable us to get to know the people behind the profiles.
Yeah, it was an accountability, right? We're going to know. I have a Verb Your Values workshop that I do every month. Last month, I asked the whole group, and there, I don't know, 20, 30 people who were there. And I asked everybody, like, all right, show of hands, who thinks you have a really good BS meter? You know, it was like, I know, except for my mother, bless her heart. You know, she was like, I never know. Like, that's true. But everybody else was like, yeah, I can tell when someone's faking it. And then, you know, calling people out to being accountable for, well, if that's true, then it's also probably true that you've all faked it with someone. You've all like pretended to be interested in something someone was saying to be polite. Mm-hmm. You've all like pretended to like be calm, you know, or pretended to like someone. But there's something about these events that allowed us to be real and connect. We didn't have to like everybody. Not everybody had to get along. But creating an environment where you could be yourself allowed those people who were themselves in a way that I wouldn't necessarily like, found each other. And I was like, perfect, you know?
Yeah, LinkedIn Locals were kind of on the edge of party and professional.
I love that. Right? Hashtag that.
And because it kind of felt that way. And you could kind of tell when you went to one, if it was someone's first time, they didn't really you had to, as a host or someone there, you had to like get them comfortable. But then the most favorite ones I went to were like the gray line between party and, you know, event, right, or whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of where people felt comfortable. I remember I was one of the DC ones. I met a gentleman, I don't remember his name, but you know, it started in the typical networking thing, and I literally stopped him. I said, I don't care what you do during the day. I was like, what are you passionate about? And he ended up talking my ear off about, I was like, guitars or banjos. And I love that. Like, it really like sparked him to start going off on something he loved. And then I asked him, well, why not pursue that? Like, are you doing more of that? And it was just one of those things where, I don't know, those folks that came these for the first time, if you really kind of broke down that barrier and they loosened up, it was a great experience. And that's what I enjoyed the most over and over again.
I love that. I love thinking about somebody talking to you about a banjo passion, you know. You can see when somebody's face is lit about something they really truly care about. And that's why having these events, we're asking those questions, getting that kind of information out of people, really connected people beyond something actional and really more connective. It's why you created a whole movement that 100 or more people around the world from the ground that felt like they had ownership over part of it, like that it belongs to all of us. It belongs to the.
It feels weird that it's over. It feels weird that it's over. I was thinking about this today, coming back on. Like, we know the events are still going on. You know, it's you know, just more wide scale, but it feels like a lifetime ago, but also yesterday. So today's been
there's a book.
There's a book.
There happens to be a book called How a Hashtag Changed the World. So maybe the decentralization or the control of that brand, of that authenticity, that connection, that humanity is no longer something that can be controlled by the original core people. But with this book, with the stories of the people who were there in the room, the people who were part of this, the people who needed this, speaking, personally, and my story's in there too, to transform our lives. This was not just a place to go and exchange business cards, but go and exchange your day and everything you had just done for real, true connection and purpose and activation. Like the things that came out of this movement, you can learn from the stories in this book. It's a beautiful collection. I know that there are hundreds of stories that didn't make it in, but the ones that did, just as Nicole Johnston was saying earlier in the call, and with Caroline Goldsmith, the editor, that there's something in it for everyone. Anybody who's looking to scale a movement through community can learn something that they will personally respond to and feel they can take ownership over in their own lives, so that it doesn't ever have to be over. It really belongs to all of us. And I think the book is a beautiful way of kind of passing those stories down, like passing on oral tradition of a religion that's very much felt like, and really of a community that you built from scratch. So congratulations. It's really quite something that you've done.
Thank you. The book was almost as hard as the movement.
Yeah. Do you want to say any last words about the book before we sign off and I send you over to the after party? On your
I've got 8 hours before the after party, so 9 hours, so I'm good. I get to go and rest my voice. But yeah, look, I was just and am still just so inspired by the stories that came from this movement, and that was the reason for the book. And it was I didn't want those stories in my inbox forever. They needed to be written and told, and I think there's just so many lessons from this, well beyond even what I've written in the book in terms of user communities and things like that. So, and I would have loved to include more stories in there, but as Caroline talked about, we can't. I'm a people pleaser, and I would just put everybody in there, but that's not quite how books go. So So thank you to everybody who submitted their stories and was willing to share who they truly were for that book, and also at those events, and that continue to do so at those events. There's a lot of cities running online right now that are still creating those connections, and that's really, really special. So but go forth and seek out the stories and stop asking people what it's not about what we do for a living at all. It's about who you are.
Go forth and seek out the stories. And Meryl is asking, where is his invite to the after party? So Anna, where can people see information about the after party?
So if you go to my profile, it's pinned in the featured section. It's on it's 11 a.m. UK time. So it will be, it's very early. What will that be, 8 a.m.? No. I should
You don't have to worry about that. People, like, if people want to come,
it's super early EST. We've deliberately done the after party for UK, Europe, and India, who are currently asleep right now. So that's why it was planned. But if you're an early bird in the US, I think you can get up about 6 a.m. and you'll be able to catch some of it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for giving me the chance to.
Thank you, Lila. This has been great.
Amplify this. You know, this is like a big love fest. I know you wouldn't have done this for yourself. You know, you're way too humble, but I'm not at all humble about you. You know, I'll brag on you and like rally people to come celebrate you any day. And it's been an honor. Yeah. Well, thanks, you guys. I guess we're going to sign off.
Thanks, guys.
Congratulations.
I'm going to get some sleep soon.
Yeah.
Right.